Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and this one is a little bit of a surprise, actually. New York City changes firearms transport policy before Supreme Court review. New York City decided to change a portion of its gun laws related to the transport of firearms just a few months after the Supreme Court decided to review a lawsuit scrutinizing the city's gun control laws. Licensed gun owners in the city of New York will soon be able to legally transport their firearm to a second home, business, or any other place gun possession is permitted as a result of a rules change the NYPD announced Friday, the New York Daily News reported. The changes are expected to go into place following a 30-day public comment period starting next week. Currently, permitted gun owners in New York City can only carry their guns to approved firing ranges or areas where hunting is allowed. The city's firearm policy change is expected to affect 16,000 licensed gun owners and only residents who live within the city limits. The firearm must be unloaded when being transported, and the ammunition is required to be carried separately. Those mandates will not change. The change applies only to legal gun owners who have already gone through a strenuous background verification process, Police Commissioner James O'Neill said. The NYPD's focus will always be on criminals who wield illegal guns and those who would use guns to cause violence on our streets. Reasonably accommodating the interest of licensed gun owners in transporting their firearms to a legal shooting range or second home strikes a responsible balance between individual interests and public safety. The rule change comes amid an NRA-ILA backed lawsuit filed by the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association et al. Against the City of New York related to the city's gun transport laws that the Supreme Court decided to review last January. Despite the planned rule change before the case is argued, the NRA called the city's effort a desperate attempt to get the case dismissed by the High Court. The City of New York clearly knows that its current restrictions on carrying and transportation of lawfully owned firearms are unconstitutional and will fail under any standard of constitutional review, as the NRA has been saying for years, the NRA said in a statement. Today, it asked the U.S. Supreme Court to ignore the Constitution and allow the city to slow walk a narrow expansion of its current policy through a lengthy bureaucratic process, the result of which, even if adopted, would still unduly infringe on the fundamental individual right to keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment, it added before continuing. That is not how things work in the Supreme Court. The court does not put its review on hold while the government embarks on a journey that might, at best, fix only a limited part of the constitutional defect. This is nothing more than a naked attempt by New York City to resist Supreme Court review of policies that even New York must recognize as inconsistent with the holdings in District of Columbia v. Heller and McDonald v. City of Chicago. The City of New York did not respect its citizens' Second Amendment rights before the Supreme Court granted review in this case, and it will not respect them going forward. We are confident that the court will reject New York's desperate attempt to avoid review of its blatantly unconstitutional laws. The state of New York lost in court over its ban on stun guns and tasers last month when a federal judge ruled that the state's prohibition of the devices by all citizens for the purposes, even for self-defense in one's own home, must be declared unconstitutional. There's a related argument there below, and of course, as always, I will be posting the URL for this story. This strikes me as just proof that politicians know when their laws are unconstitutional. The City of New York decided to say, yes, you can own a gun, but you can't take it anywhere unless we approve it in advance. We will approve certain gun ranges, and we will approve certain areas for hunting. And even then, you have to be licensed to carry your firearm to and from those locations. Never mind if you own a second home or if you own a business, you cannot transport your firearm once it is locked up in one of those places. Now, when the Supreme Court granted review, New York jumped to say, okay, fine, you can take your firearm to a business or home that you own. You just have to have the ammunition separately stored and locked away. Now, I will admit that the threat of force is often all you need to diffuse a situation. You come upon someone beating the living daylights out of someone else, and you pull an unloaded firearm, they don't know if it's loaded or not. Now, I know from a simple glance if my P345 is loaded because it has an indicator. Is there a round chambered? But many firearms do not. You would have to rack the slide or action the bolt or rack the slide on a pump shotgun possibly ejecting a shell and loading another one, or just attempt to fire. And when the idiot hears click, they attack you. But in many cases, that threat of force, that I'm holding a firearm, a weapon greater than your fists or your club, stop what you're doing now, will diffuse most situations unless you introduce a wild card, such as being drunk or high or just mentally deficient. And New York knows that the Constitution clearly states the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So far, they have managed to hold on to their so-called assault weapons ban, which means the AR-15, which is no different from a Mini 14 and far less powerful than many other rifles they've not even touched, is illegal. But they continue to try to restrict the lawful carrying of pistols, because in the darkest corners of their mind, they know they're wrong. They know that there is really no preponderance of people running around with AR-15s committing crimes. We have a few in recent years, but when you look at all of the gun crime, and we're not going to look at suicides or legal use to defend oneself, one's property, or another person, so only those actions that are criminal 100%. Most of them are pistols. The next most common is shotgun. Rifles are an infinitesimal percent of criminal gun use. And politicians know this. They know they have to have a foot in the door to ultimately expand their power by disarming people more and more and more until it's total. They start with the so-called assault weapons, the scary-looking rifle that is no different from a hunting rifle they don't have a problem with. I've often wondered what would happen if I could show de Blasio or Pelosi or Schumer or any of these other gun grabbers a video of two people at a firing range. Tell them one is holding a standard Ruger AR-15, the other is holding a standard Ruger Mini 14. Which one of these weapons would qualify as an assault weapon? Wait for them to name the AR-15 and AR-15 only. Then continue the video where both people fire 2 rounds, semi-automatic only. They then eject their magazines, trade, put the other magazine into their own weapon, and continue firing, thus proving that in all respects but cosmetic, the look, those weapons are the same. Having a pistol grip does not change the fact that you are firing 1 round every time you pull the trigger. It does not make the bullet faster or larger or more dangerous in any way, shape, form, or fashion. A .308 will go farther than a .223. It's just simple logic that states there are rifles that are more or less powerful than other rifles. And to say, well, being semi-automatic makes it more dangerous is idiocy. To say that having a pistol grip somehow changes the fundamental science of the powder ignites and the projectile is forced out of the barrel and sent downrange at the same speed no matter what grip you have is lunacy. But these idiots who are protected by men with fully automatic weapons in some cases know that they have to base everything on emotion. Pardon me. To apologize for that. I did not know my phone was on. But we'll continue. They know their policy is insane, and they know it's wrong, because they know that their own people would tell them, you're an idiot. I've often also wondered if I could get up and give a talk to a room full of gun control idiots, having a photo of an AR-15, a Mini 14, a .308, maybe a .300 Winchester, and have strategically through the crowd a few people who are experts in firearms, maybe a range master for one of the military branches, or someone who works for one of the manufacturers. And at one point ask someone I know I've not placed in the crowd, which one of these is the most dangerous? Have them point to the AR-15 as they always will. Then very clearly say, Rangemaster, please stand up. The Rangemaster would stand up, identify himself and his credentials as an expert. Then have him say, Rangemaster, which one of these weapons will fire a projectile the farthest at the greatest speed? He would not indicate the AR-15, because a .223 round, in many cases, is the weakest round of all rifles. 22 long rifle, slightly below it. In many places in the country, in fact, 223 and 5.56 ammo is deemed too weak to humanely kill an animal when hunting. So it's not allowed because it's too weak. But if suddenly when you're having it for sport or home defense, it's the most evil, most powerful, most satanic thing on the planet and must be eliminated. But I've talked long enough about this. I would love to hear from some New Yorkers on this. So if you have friends, please share the video. Well, if you have friends in New York, please share the video. I phrased that badly. Also, make sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Just as always, keep the comments classy and civil. We learn from debate, not from argument. And as always, please like, share, and subscribe, and ring notifications so that you are the first to know when new content is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.